Today, it's the start of Project Old School. We're taking Ford's classic F100 and turning it into one mean daily driver. And it's one of the most famous Fords ever, Bigfoot. It's all today here on Trucks.
Hey everybody, welcome to Trucks, where it's all about building great performing custom trucks. Anywhere from the good, the bad,
and the ugly. And today, we started this old school 53 Ford, and you guys are gonna love it.
Trucks are trucks, right? Well, not exactly. I mean, the fact that they have four wheels, an engine, and a bed in the back's common.
Yeah, but some trucks will turn your head no matter where they go. And classics do it better than anything.
Just like that one. This awesome 56 F100 was built by Don Mathis, and it'll grab your attention wherever you go. But can you drive a classic like this every day? This truck's got $100,000, thousands of hours invested in it, not to mention a little blood and sweat. It's got a beefed up 429, power steering and air conditioning, and custom bodywork and a flawless paint job. This truck is rolling artwork. Now that was made to be seen. There is no way that's a daily driver.
Definitely not. On the other hand, this 53, we could drive this thing every day and get every bit as much attention as that truck. Well, maybe we can't drive it every day because it's just unreliable, and that's why it's here.
That's right. We found this thing for $2,500, and we weren't about to let that get away. So we put all the other projects on hold, brought this in. Now it's been hacked on and painted, but it was 20 years ago.
Now to a purist, this truck's wasted, but to hot rodders like you and like us, this is a diamond in the rough. And we're gonna show you guys that a classic like this is nothing to be afraid of. You don't have to do a frame-off restoration. You can do this work at home in your shop, and we'll show you how to make this truck into a reliable driver you can be proud of.
Yeah, when we get done with our classic Ford, it's gonna have a new engine, suspension, and all the comforts of a new truck. But most important, it's gotta be safe. So, let's go see what's under the skin of that truck.
Now this truck's been clipped. A whole front frame section from another vehicle has been welded onto the factory frame, which is how we used to have to do this back in the day when I started working on these things. You'd go to a junkyard, you'd measure it out, you'd find a frame with the suspension you wanted, lob it off in the field, drag it back to your shop, and weld it onto your project. And you F100 guys know that this Nova clip is a pretty common mod. And this guy, well, he had the right idea. He even boxed the back of the rail, but he just didn't finish the job. Now look at this. This boxing plate, there's a giant gap there. There's no weld here. There's an ugly Frankenstein stitch weld along here. And look here, there's Bondo, and that's used to cover up what's on the outside. We don't even know what's behind that. And there's a little more work here than we thought.
Yeah, and these fenders, full of rust and mud. That's why they gotta go. So let's get this thing down and get the sheet metal off.
There's two schools of thought here. You can do it my way, or you can do it Paul's way. The bottom line is don't destroy your parts. These are antique and not junk. Somebody somewhere is dying for steel parts for their truck, and these will find another home.
Oh yeah.
All right, you ready? Now we get to see what's behind all that Bondo.
This is where we get a better look at our Nova front end. And this is exactly why you see so many Chevy engines in Ford trucks. Hey, it just works. This one's actually in pretty good shape. We just need to clean it up, reinforce the welds, and we're good to go. Now, the whole reason guys even switched these out in the first place was to get rid of that outdated straight axle leaf spring setup. Now, if this was a factory frame, we'd be able to go to any catalog and order a Mustang 2, or any number of aftermarket front ends. You could even get a complete frame for this truck.
Well, you know, after we got this uncovered, the welds actually look pretty solid, so whoever did this before, sorry, but we still got a lot more work to do. These extra welds will give us the strength we're going to need for the extra power we'll add. Besides, this looks good enough to powder coat if we want to show it off.
All right, now that we've got that straightened out, it's time to work on the stands. Now, we could rebuild that whole front end suspension if we wanted to, but this is trucks. So after the break, we're gonna drop this thing down all the way with airbag suspension.
And this peach goes back on the show circuit where it belongs, so we'll see you in a few. Hey, Paul, get that door.
Up next, the legendary Bigfoot. And later, our F100 runs low. On air, that is.
Hey, welcome back to Trucks and Project Old School F100. We're getting ready to transplant in our air system. Now, it's not a crime to take a classic vehicle like this and put modern suspension systems like air underneath it. After all, it's not a frame-off restoration. We're going for a daily driver with some serious attitude.
Yeah, and while Kevin and I tear down the front end, we're gonna show you a Ford truck that was not only built with modern parts, but maybe even a few futuristic ones. It's the ultimate Ford truck, Bigfoot.
From Allentown to Zaire, there isn't a better known or more loved monster truck than Bigfoot.
What began as a marketing tool for Bob Chandler's parts shop is now one of the most technically advanced 4x4s on the planet.
For safety reasons, Bigfoot is restricted to a 572 cubic inch motor with an 871 blower. Still, this machine punches 1,500 horses.
The thing that is odd about a monster truck is their sprung weight. It's opposite of any other vehicle out there. Our tires, wheels, the axle are the heaviest part of the truck instead of the body like any other vehicle. These trucks will lift the front tires off the ground.
To keep it on all fours, Chandler uses nitrogen gas shocks.
That's our whole suspension. We have no springs on most of these trucks. What has happened in the last few years, the basic frame and the setup is pretty much the same on all these trucks. The only thing that we've changed is we've gone to a bypass shock and a better operating shock where it's easier on the driver, easier on the truck, and the whole idea is to keep that tire on the ground, so if you have good suspension and your tire stays on the ground, you can win races. Our axle shafts are probably no bigger than a 1-ton pickup truck turning this tire, but there's a 6.5 to 1 reduction right there in the planetary at the wheel. The next big thing here, this is the whole chassis. This is the tube chassis and the 4-link suspension. That's something that we put on here. That's the transfer case right in here. That's more of the steering apparatus up here because we steer front and rear and we're turning these huge tires, so you need a massive hydraulic system on it.
And it wouldn't be a monster truck if it weren't for the tires.
What you see here is our Firestone tires, and they start out about 800 pounds. We cut them 200 pounds of weight off, and it just gives your whole drivetrain much easier. You know, it takes less energy to get that moving.
To have a monster truck is every kid's dream, but it takes a monster amount of green to run a top-notch team.
Well, the truck could be anywhere from $100 to $150, maybe even $200,000, depending on. An engine can be $50,000, so that's a big part of it. You can paint a truck like that, besides paying your driver and a good salary and insurance and everything else involved in that, your tractor trailer is another $150,000. We race at these events and we lose money. Without sponsors, we couldn't race. It's impossible.
For 30 years, Bigfoot has thrilled crowds around the world. And for Bob Chandler, that's what it's all about.
Because you see not only kids, but husbands and wives, and sometimes grandmother and grandfathers at the events. This whole thing is family events, you know, which really makes it neat.
Man, 1,500 horsepower. That's almost 5 times as much as this will put out when we're done.
Yeah, well, they're not gonna be able to slam old Bigfoot into the turf like we're gonna do this F100.
That's exactly right, and that's what we'll do next. Hey guys, welcome back. So far today, we've stripped the front sheet metal off our Project Old School F100, taken the suspension apart on that Nova subframe, and that's got us right here, riding on air.
And this is Air Ride Technology system that's gonna get us low to the ground. They all start with these shock waves that were made for a 68 through 74 Chevy Nova. Those are supported by these beefy Air Ride upper and lower control arms.
Out back, we've got this parallel 4-link system with a panhard bar for stability. We use these new gas shocks, bags, and brackets, and all of this completely replaces the factory leaf springs and shocks.
Now, this is the compressor that feeds the tank. The tank then sends the air out to the Ride Pro controller and then out to all 4 bags. This is going to give us an adjustable ride and a 4-inch drop.
That's right. We're going to start up front with these shock waves.
Not so fast. We're going to do a little surgery first. We're going to trim right here so the shock wave won't hit the frame. There's lateral or side-to-side movement as the suspension arcs. And touching metal, we can rub through that bag real fast. After that, we'll grind the rough cut smooth.
Cool.
Oh, yeah.
Tons of room.
Perfect. Now, I know it looks like we cut out a lot, but we didn't weaken our frame because we got this heavy-duty cross member under there.
That's right, and we created all the clearance we need to go through the full range of suspension travel without damaging the bellows. Let's build this thing up. This system will give us a total of 4 inches of drop fully deflated and actually can improve ride quality. The tube steel control arms bolt right onto the factory locations on the frame and will support this air system no problem. This is pretty much a bolt-on system that replaces the OE. If you wanted to put drop spindles on for an even more aggressive stance, S10 spindles share the same ball joint taper and bolt pattern. And don't forget to use new castle nuts and cotter pins when you reassemble everything.
Now, before we take anything apart, we've got to mark the center point of our axle on the frame.
It's a hacked up mix of an old Ford suspension mixed in with a Nova rear end. Now we'll support the rear axle and start tearing this nasty 50-year-old stuff off.
For something that old, these leaf spring assemblies were still solid as a rock. Now, like a lot of parts in this truck, these are in pretty good shape, so they won't be seeing the scrap pile. They'll get saved for the swap meet. All right.
Next, we're working out the ride height. How low should we go? Find out when we come back.
Hey, welcome back to Trucks and Project Old School F100, where we're in the middle of installing an air ride suspension. Now, before we even think about welding in the 4-link out back, we got to figure out where this thing sits. Now, we know we're tied with our Nova subframe and where it's welded in, and we're staying with that. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to jack this tire up until my shockwave is fully compressed, and that way I'll be able to tell where this truck sits with it fully slammed. I've got 12.5 inches to the bottom of the tire. Now, our running board is the reference point, and we've got 17.5 inches to the bottom of the running board. So that tells me with this thing fully slammed, we've got 5 inches of ground clearance to that board.
All right, the first step is to set our pinion angle, then we want to mount our spring plates on the axle. So, with the rear axle supported on jack stands, we'll use a floor jack to set our pinion angle dead level at ride height. Right there. Then, we'll lift our frame off the axle to our ride height, which is 4 inches above the axle. Using an angle finder, we'll make sure the spring plate is set parallel. Then, tack in the lower spring supports.
We had to cut our own boxing plates out of 3/16 steel to mount the upper bag supports. Remember, this is not a bolt-in kit. It's a universal system that you adapt to your vehicle. So we're going to tack everything in place and mock the 4-link up.
Air Ride says we need 9 inches between spring supports and ride height. That gives the best ride and range of the rear bags. Measure twice, weld once. This is the foundation of the whole rear suspension, and it has to be right.
We use square tubing to temporarily stabilize the rear axle while we tack the assembled link bars to the housing and then to the outside of the frame ahead of the axle.
The axle brackets hold the shocks at the bottom, and we drilled an existing cross member to mount the shocks up top. Now, things may not fall into place right away with a universal kit, but if you can install this kit, you can fab up a support bracket no sweat.
With the system mocked up, we can double check measurements and fit. Remember, we just tack things into place, so it's still possible to adjust or tweak the fit if you need to. Oh man, yeah. On the bump stops, we got lots of clearance. Cool.
The Panhard bar stabilizes lateral travel, and you have to cut it to fit your vehicle. Now clearance is tight, but ours works great at the top of the axle between the frame rails, and is almost perfectly parallel at ride height.
When you're absolutely positive that everything's in place, all the welding can be finished up.
Finally, the bags can go on. Air suspension has been used on transport trucks for decades. So not only is it safe, it's rock solid, reliable technology, and now it can go on almost any vehicle.
For now, we're just going to run temporary airlines front and rear to test the bags for leaks and the system for any problems.
Man, this truck's gonna look cool from a mile away when it's all laid out.
Yeah, and it's going to be pretty bitchin' up close too. Do it.
3, 2, 1.
Ah. Man, that is awesome.
That is low. That is low.
Oh, that rocks. What a great stance. Next time you guys see this, we'll take care of that boat anchor between the frame rails.
Good idea.
Yeah. If you've got performance mods on your vehicle like superchargers, headers, or nitrous, you definitely don't want to ignore your spark plugs. Check out these V8 plugs from Zex. These use clean fire technology and utilize the optimum heat range for making horsepower without the associated fouling problems from a cooler burning plug. Here's how they work. They've got these extra side-gapped ground straps that burn away carbon deposits and keep the whole plug super clean. These plugs use a copper core coated in iridium for great conductivity that won't flake away like some coated plugs. You can get these at almost any performance automotive dealer. Pick up a set of 8 for about 50 bucks.
Here's a whole new twist on a cold air kit. This is AEM's brute force intake system. Now, not only do you get 10% better fuel economy, but the really cool thing here is this system uses a dry performance air filter that never needs oiling. That eliminates any warranty issues and it reduces your service time. It's CNC mandrel bent from 6061 aluminum, and the fittings and brackets are all hand TIG welded. The steel heat shield is carbon black powder coated. This is legal in all 50 states, and it's only about 260 bucks.
If you've got a high-performance vehicle, you need a high-performance battery. These Optimas have sealed cells and they're virtually vibration-proof, which makes them perfect for an off-road application. You can mount these any way you want, so they're great for hot rods, race cars, or RVs. And with their deep cycle characteristics, you can throw all kinds of accessories like off-road lights or stereo systems at them without running the risk of getting stranded with a dead battery. You can pick one of these up for about 170 bucks. Thanks for watching Trucks. See you guys next week.